welcome to Becoming Saul. It's Entertainment Talks podcast for Better Call Saul on AMC and Netflix. I'm your host Matthew. Joining me today, my co-host is David. How are you today?
I'm very well, thanks.
Good, good. We're here today to talk about Season 5, Episode 8, Bagman. What do you think of this episode?
Fabulous. Absolutely superb. I thought this is one of the strongest episodes. And I mean, not that there has been bad episodes of this show yet, but I really thought this was a strong episode. Probably the most Breaking Bad feeling episode we've had so far of the show. Very much. I mean, Vince directed it himself, and you can kind of tell. It's very much a kind of in the what was the episode with the fly in the very much in that sort of vein of a sort of self-contained thing mostly, and there isn't actually, it's sort of one story going all the way through that episode. It's not kind of jumping around all that much. But I thought it was brilliantly shot. You've got some great action bits in it. It's wonderfully put together, and they managed to ratchet up the tension despite the fact that you know that both these characters are going to survive because we know they're in Breaking Bad later, but they still managed to make it work. Just a superb episode all round. Brilliant acting, wonderful direction, beautiful cinematography. I just thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. This is an amazing episode of TV, and it's amazing what you can do when, for the most part, you're focusing on two people. Yes, you do go to Lalo and Kim and a couple of other characters as well, but it's mostly focused on, Jimmy and Mike, and it still manages to really pull off something quite good, quite amazing. And that's just the power of, we've praised Vince Gilligan, I think quite rightly, for lots of different things. Obviously for this, El Camino, Breaking Bad, and some other stuff. It just goes to show what he's kind of capable of. And yeah, some other shows, when you have just mainly two characters and you're in a desert, which there's barely anything to work with there, isn't there? There's a desert, there's one car chasing these people or looking for these people, two characters bouncing back and forth between each other. You cut to a little bit of Kim, a little bit of Lalo, but not like a massive amount. And it still manages to pull off something really special. I think that takes a lot of skill, and it's something that will go underrated somewhat in the industry. Some people will just look at this as a normal episode of TV, but you think of the minimal amount of things that are actually being used in this episode and what it manages to pull off. And the funny thing as well is there was a sense of tension in the episode, but wasn't the tension was the tension was nowhere near okay, is Jimmy and Mike gonna die? Because they're not, but somehow there's still that tension of okay, could they get captured? Could one of them get, I don't know, injured, or could something else happen?
Yeah.
And you weren't really sure what that could even have ended up being necessarily, but there was still somehow that tension, and there almost shouldn't be that tension, because we know these two survive. We know that this guy isn't going to find them and kill them both or whatever. So it's really incredible when you're able to do that. And I still thought the Lalo Kim scenes were effective and really great, and it's really interesting the way that they're sort of slowly sliding her into the main kind of the main cartel stuff. It's really amazing the way they're managing to do that. So just a completely solid episode all around. And like you said, you can tell this is much more of a Breaking Bad episode. This is much more of a Vince central episode, obviously, because he directed it and that, and obviously he's involved with the show and created it and all that sort of thing. And you can really kind of tell in some ways. This was the first time, I think, since maybe the Gene scenes I talked about at the start of the season, where you can feel that Breaking Bad quality of writing. And I'm not saying that Better Call Saul is worse than Breaking Bad. They're both excellent shows. I do think that Breaking Bad's probably the better show. But at certain points during Better Call Saul, including this episode, you can really feel that quality of writing coming through, and it happened again in this episode, and it's just really amazing. And like I said, some people will probably background watch this episode or watch this episode while they're on their phone, and they won't get the full appreciation of it. They'll be sort of watching it in passing kind of thing, being like, oh, I know what happens to these two, and that sort of thing. And it's unfortunate I mean, me and you enjoyed the episode and we paid attention and all that sort of thing, and that's great. But yeah, sometimes some of these episodes go kind of underrated, and it's interesting you bring up the Fly episode as well. We do have an email about that later on, but this very much does feel like the Fly episode of Better Call Saul in a way, where it's like focused on these two. You'd say main characters, pretty much.
Well, yes.
Yeah. Obviously, I would say in context, maybe Kim is a slightly bigger character than Mike, but Mike is still a big character anyway. And then you've got Gus and some other characters that are pretty major. But obviously, the Breaking Bad Fly episode is Jesse and Walt, which are the two main leads, like directly and stuff. So that was great as well. And yeah, it's I can't wait to get into the episode and talk about some specific stuff. So let's do that in a minute, but we'll get into some housekeeping in a second.
Just before we go into that, I should sort of say this is the first episode of this season that Vince has directed because of the fact that he was busy with El Camino. Okay. So just want to give some props to Gordon Smith as well, who was the screenwriter for this episode, because I thought he did a phenomenal job. It actually took, Vince described this episode as being one of the most challenging episodes of anything in his career he's ever shot. He also said that it was basically one episode for the price of two. It took twice as long to shoot. You know, the average episode takes 9 days, and this took about 18. Oh, so. Wow. It was a incredibly challenging thing for him to kind of put together. But yeah, they specifically picked this episode as being one that they thought would be completely up Vince's street, and you know, because Vince isn't the showrunner, despite being the creator, he's not the showrunner of this. The showrunner is Peter Gould, his close friend. And they specifically picked this episode for Vince to direct just because they thought it was such an episode that was completely Vince's thing, and they were absolutely right. But yes, the average 9 days for a shoot. This one took 18, and yeah, I think that comes across in the episode as well. It's just phenomenal.
Certainly paid off, I think. So, cool. Yeah. Alright, let's get into some housekeeping now then. We'll see you for that in a minute. Today's sponsor is Kualu. If you'd like to get started with a domain name and a website today, just click on the link in the show notes and that will take you over to Kualu to get started. They also have a live support chat system that you can use, which is in the bottom right hand corner. So get started with a new website and domain name today with Kualu. Hey everybody, if you would like to get the ad-free versions of all of our podcasts and support Entertainment Talk along the way, all you need to do is head over to patreon.com/entertainment talk. Sign up either as a creator or as a Patreon, there's no difference there. That's just the option for either becoming a creator now or just staying as a patron for the moment. And then all you need to do is support us at the $1 level tier. That will get you access to all of the ad-free podcasts that we've done in the past, and get you access to all the ad-free podcasts in that month as well. So it's a great way to support us on Entertainment Talk and to get rid of the ads and get your ad-free podcasts. You can also become a patron at the $3 level tier. That gets you access to ad-free podcasts and allows you to redeem a review of a TV show or a film of entirely your choice. That's one per month for either a TV show or a film review, which is at the $3 level tier. As always, thank you very much for listening. Back to the show. Alright, quite a few things that we did yesterday on Entertainment Talk. I'm going to run you through those. The CW shows came back, of course the Arrowverse shows. Flash has come back. We will be doing that later, me and Robert. But Arrow was one of the other ones that came back for Season 8, Episode 9, which is the backdoor pilot episode for the Birds of Prey, not Birds of Prey, the Canaries in that episode, for the backdoor pilot for the upcoming potential spin-off. Hasn't been ordered to series yet, but of course nothing is really progressing with TV at the moment anyway. But we'll see in the coming months what happens with that. But that was interesting. There's one more episode left, which is Season 8, Episode 10, the series finale, and then of course the week after that we'll be back for the series wrap-up podcast as well. I believe Season 8 Episode 10 is available today, because when I went on Sky to check it said Season 8 Episode 10 available tomorrow, and that was yesterday. So okay. I'm not sure. I thought it might be weekly, but apparently it's not, but we shall see. Regardless, we'll be back soon with the series finale review, but you can enjoy Season 8 Episode 9 coverage for that. The Mandalorian, me and Robert yesterday talked about some of that. There's 4 episodes available currently in the UK. The 5th episode will be released tomorrow. But if you want some spoiler-free discussion, just our general impressions, thoughts and feelings on The Mandalorian, of course the Disney Plus series, which you can now sign up to Disney Plus in the UK. It's been out for 2 weeks now, I want to say.
Something like that.
2 weeks.
Apparently it's just past 50 million paid subscribers.
Wow.
So Disney, I mean, although they're losing money on the parks because they're all shut at the moment, they launched Disney Plus at about the right time for them, I think.
Yeah, but you can go and check out the first 4 episodes of The Mandalorian and check out new episodes on Friday. But if you want to join in with some spoiler-free discussion, you can check out that podcast as well. That's for episodes 1 to 4. So keep that in mind as well. Gaming Talk yesterday, we talked about the PS5 controller, which is called the DualSense. They just dropped an image on a random Tuesday morning for them, afternoon for us. And we discussed that. Looks a lot better in black. If some of you haven't seen the black images of the controller, but they showed that and they talked about some different features of the controller, what it will be able to do, and the change to USB-C and that sort of stuff. So we discussed all that. So it's not called the DualShock 5, it's called the DualSense. So there you go. We also talked about Last of Us 2 and Iron Man VR because they're both delayed. And we also talked about a bunch of other stuff as well yesterday on Gaming Talk, so you can check that one out. Westworld, we've already covered Season 3, Episode 4 for the current season, halfway through that season already. But you can check out that if you're watching Westworld at the moment. Walking Dead is temporarily stopping at the moment for Season 10, Episode 15, which we covered yesterday as well. It does have a 16th episode in its 10th season, but they haven't finished making it yet, and due to what's going on in the world, we don't know when that episode will be, but we will sure to be back when that episode gets finished with production, whenever that will be. No one really knows yet, but we shall see. So the temporary season finale, if you will, at the moment. So there's that. What else did we do? I did a podcast for pretty much just football in general. Of course, the United Cast is what it's called, mainly talking about Manchester United, but talking about the impact on the whole football situation, because of course football can't be played at the moment. What does that mean for relegations, promotions, people who are about to win the title, such as Liverpool, and of course the other countries, Italy, France, Germany, all those places. What could it mean for the delay of next season, or null and void this season, or there's lots of different things that could potentially happen. So I just basically gave my opinion on what that could be. Nothing's been decided yet. I think they're still sort of weighing their options, but we shall see. So, because it's everyone that will be affected who plays football. So, we shall see. Run is a new mini-series that's starting this Sunday on HBO. So, if you have HBO, look out for that. And it will be Wednesday the 15th of April for Sky Comedy. If you're in the UK, that's on Sky and on Now TV on the 15th at 9 p.m. I will either be back late Wednesday or more likely Thursday for the first episode, but you can go and listen to a preview podcast for the mini-series. Due to it being a mini-series, there isn't going to be an iTunes feed dedicated because it's only going to be 8 episodes and done pretty much. So you can check that out. That's Merritt Weaver, Donald Gleeson and Phoebe Waller-Bridge returning to our screens, so that should be good as well. What else do we have? Let's Play Sundays for Dreams. That's me just browsing some creations in Dreams at the moment and just having some fun on there. And then there's of course the 2 Resident Evil pieces of content. If you want to see me take on the Nemesis for the first time, which was very, very interesting, you can watch the Let's Play Sundays episode. If you want to know my thoughts on the whole game after completing it, there's the skip recommendation Resident Evil 3 review. Of course that's just my recommendation and opinion or whatever, but you can listen to the review if you want to hear more from that. And that's what we've been doing on entertainmenttalk.org and on podcast platforms. Cold Open. The cousins arrive at a cartel site in Mexico to pick up Lalo's bail money, the $7 million. As they depart, an informant inside the building makes a telephone call to report their presence. Cool to see the cousins again. I don't recall the last time. We've seen them in Better Call Saul before, but I can't remember when exactly that was. Obviously, we know that they survive, at least until Breaking Bad, when Hank kills them in the... it was the parking space thing. That was quite a scene. In Breaking Bad. But they have that as well. What do you think of seeing the cousins again?
Yeah, they have popped up, I'm sure, in this show before. But
I can't remember what episode or season, but they have before,
so it was nice to see them kind of pop up again, and they're the obvious choice, I think, just to kind of walk up and drop the bags off, I think. So yeah, it was good to see them. I mean, they're kind of comical just because they don't talk, and it's weird. They're kind of imposing but quite funny.
Mm.
just because of the situation. But yeah, I do enjoy seeing those. They're great.
Yeah, there's also this little scene of sorts with these two guys cleaning this car, and there's like blood all over the seats and
Yeah,
stuff. I can't remember if we got. I don't think we got told what that was about, but one of them was like messing about and like splashing the other one with something or whatever. I thought that was an interesting little kind of touch. But yeah, it's interesting with the cousins because they don't talk. I think they've talked once in this series before. They've like said a small piece of dialogue, but they're mostly muted for the most part. But yeah, they're still quite intimidating. I still remember that cold open from I think Breaking Bad where they're like crawling along the ground
yes,
with their suits.
it's a classic sequence. Yeah,
Yeah, proper sort of confusing Breaking Bad cold open style where you're wondering what the hell's going on and then you know by the end of the episode. So they're very very cool characters. It was cool to see. So and this is kind of a good opportunity to use those characters as well, just for a simple sort of money drop off kind of situation. So
mm.
there you go. Lalo gives Jimmy directions to a remote desert pickup site near the border. Jimmy reluctantly agrees but asks for $100,000 in payment, which Lalo agrees pretty easily to. Kim then later begs Jimmy not to go, but he feels it will be an easy job and no one will suspect him of being the carrier. You're wrong about both of those things, Jimmy, it turns out, because this was something that almost got you killed in multiple different ways. Yeah, let's rewind slightly to the Lalo discussion there. Yeah, just I love the way that I mean he's kind of more Saul in this scene, isn't he? The bit with Lalo when he's sort of like, all right, I'm gonna walk away and that'll be that. You'll find someone else for the job. He turns around and he's like, how about $100,000? He kind of just subtly says it, doesn't he? And Lalo's like, he's like, sure, $7,100,000. What's
Yeah,
what's that?
yeah, that's quite an interesting sequence because you do see the sort of Jimminess coming out of going, I don't think I should be doing this, and then Saul suddenly kicks in as he walks to the door and goes $100,000, and then what's lovely about that is he also then goes. Lalo's going, so it's quite a lot of money. And Jimmy's going, well, yeah, but it's only, 0.2% or whatever it is. It's like a 2% cut of the overall fee. So, that's not that bad. And he agrees. So you can sort of see him doing the calculations in his head and thinking, well, if I'm going to do it, I can screw for as much money as I possibly can. Yeah, I really like that scene. I thought it was solid, and Jimmy's sort of obviously reluctant to do it, but then the dollar signs start to spin round in his eyes, and you kind of Saul kicks in, and then you've got that sequence with Kim, and I mean, on the surface, I think Jimmy's kind of right. It should, in theory, be a fairly easy job. Unfortunately, Lalo has some bad people in his organisation that have grassed him up and knowing to, him and the other people involved. Otherwise, it should. I mean, in theory, on paper, it looks like it should be an easy job. You drive out, you pick up the money, you drive back. You're in an inconspicuous car. You're their lawyer. You're not anybody that anybody should really know or care about. Should be perfectly fine. As he says in that sort of, he mentions, I can't remember what the car is, but he mentions, he drives that old banger and, there's never, I won't get hijacked and there's never been more than $50 in a car like this, So, I get it. I get the reason why he thinks. I mean, I think if you were offered a gig for $100,000 to just drive out, pick up some bags, and drive back again, you'd think about it, certainly. So I get it. And in theory, it should have been fairly easy, but circumstances when you're dealing with the mob.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, obviously, and it's kind of Jimmy underestimating the situation a bit as well. And then of course you've got the underconfident Jimmy side, which is like, nope, okay, cool, we're done. And then the Soul side comes out and it's like, you know what, I could maybe get some money from here. This shouldn't be that difficult. And it's him underestimating the cartel, and we'll see how far that takes him, because obviously we got the 2 episodes left of the season, and as things are going at the moment, and he's obviously gotten attacked in this episode, it does give you some foreshadowing as to where things are potentially going to end up. I just think that Jimmy's in this scene specifically, with Jimmy's kind of underestimating the cartel and underestimating how difficult this job probably will be, because desert and cartel is a bad combination,
But yes,
which he
that is
finds
true.
out later on. But he doesn't really like click with the overconfident version of Soul that kicks in there, and I thought that was very, very interesting to see. So yeah, Kim's the one that's right in the situation, like, I don't want you to do this, don't do it, and giving a very kind of stern, I don't want you to do it kind of thing, and she's right, and us as the audience, I think, are agreeing with her in that situation. Yes, there's $100,000 here, but there's also your life that you might lose, and you might end up, leaving Kim as it would be a widow, wouldn't it? Because they're
Yes, it
married
would
now.
be at this point.
You could end up leaving her like that, and that wouldn't be great. And yeah, it's. Do you agree with Kim as well? Like, you shouldn't do this, and I don't want you to do this, and that sort of that more nervous side of Kim kicks in there, because obviously we've seen a bit more of the overconfident side. So.
And I sort of, I get Kim's reaction as well, but I can see why Jimmy was looking at it going, it'll be fine. There's no reason, and in theory, it should have been.
Yeah.
Everything that Lalo said and everything that Jimmy's thinking should have been absolutely right, if it wasn't for the fact that Lalo has some dodgy people in his organisation that are working against him. So, in theory, it should have been fine. But then, they are dealing with the cartel, and Kim understands that and how dangerous the cartel can be. So, whereas Jimmy, I think, is a bit more, unprepared for how dangerous the cartel can be, I think.
Yeah. But the next morning, the cousins deliver 2 bags of money to Jimmy at the pickup site and immediately leave, like straight away, basically. They don't hang around for anything. Shortly after, Jimmy starts his return trip, thinking it's all done. He's eating whatever he's eating, and he's singing away, and he thinks he's all in the clear. A vehicle begins following him, the first one. It's a nice little subtle way of kind of putting that in the scene and just being like, nope, Jimmy, Jimmy's not safe. Jimmy's not going to drive away from here. And the one little car kind of pulls up. And then after the vehicle follows him for a bit, several others just come around the corner. I like the shot of that as well, this kind of shot from the side. And you can see just as the turning is coming up, these cars from the other side are coming in, and there's 3 of them or whatever. They cut him off. Numerous gunmen exit their vehicles. He's surrounded at this point. They take the money quite easily, obviously, because Jim hasn't got any protection on him and he's outnumbered, and prepare to kill Jimmy. One of them gives a sort of thumb neck cut sort of signal, like dead man sort of signal.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how else to describe it. They give that sort of signal, obviously meaning they're going to try and kill him. Suddenly they're attacked by an unknown shooter. Of course, we find out who that shooter is. All but one of them are killed and their vehicles are disabled. I want to talk about that specifically in a second. One surviving gunman escapes in the only truck that is still available, because Mike, who we know is the shooter, obviously a few minutes later, isn't able to kill the last guy. I really like the tactic of, because it does work with some of those bigger vehicles that have got really big tires. If you shoot them out and let the air out, the vehicle will lower itself, and then obviously make your piece of cover lower as well. I know this from Call of Duty, which I know isn't a great thing to reference, but it's something I've literally done on the game before. Sometimes you'll see the bigger vehicles, someone will be hiding behind them, you shoot the tires out, the vehicle gets lower, and then they have less space to take cover behind. But I quite liked that sort of little tactic as well. It doesn't work quite so well with normal sized cars, because the height just isn't quite there. So I quite like that as well. Did you sort of notice that?
I actually didn't, but yes, that's an interesting point. I didn't know that. Just going back to the cousins, the scene with the cousins dropping the bags off. I mean, there was a lovely little exchange with Jimmy trying to make conversation with them there, which I thought was really sweet. Yeah. And there's a great bit of directing by Vince there, where I think there was an intentional mirroring shot of the shot sort of between Jimmy's legs of the car coming towards them, which it was almost an exact mirror of the classic Breaking Bad shot of the opening episode with Walter stood in his pants in the middle of the desert as the car comes towards him. So holding the gun, that there seems to be an intentional kind of mirroring shot there, which I thought was I don't think there's anything necessarily that significant in it, other than it was designed to sort of make you think of that scene.
Yeah.
But I think I thought that was a lovely bit of like directing and cinematography that they put in there. So yeah, I thought that exchange was great. That was quite funny. And then those guys drive off. When the shootout first started, I did wonder whether it was the cousins that had actually just been following Jimmy and trying to keep tabs on him, and maybe it was them that were coming to save him. But of course, we find out fairly quickly it's Mike. It wasn't until Mike actually walked down that, and I realized it was one guy. I was like, oh, it's Mike. And then they revealed it. So yeah, but that whole sequence I thought was brilliant. I mean, really well put together. It's amazing how complicated those sort of shootout sequences can be to put together. And I think Vince did a superb job with that. It worked so well.
Yeah. They've all got sort of assault rifles or machine guns, and they're trying to take out this sniper. Not the easiest thing to do when it takes one shot from the sniper and multiple shots from
yes,
the rifle.
I mean,
and obviously, and the kind of from a range perspective, the assault rifle is so much more difficult to hit the target with that as well. So
at that range, yes, at that range, I mean, it's one guy with the sniper rifle can do an awful lot of damage because he's far too far away to be able to actually be hit with like a handgun or a machine gun of some sort. So
yeah, it's interesting as well because we were just talking about the Lalo stuff where he switches from Jimmy to Saul, like the underconfident, like, oh, I'm going to walk away, and then the $100,000 thing. In this, you kind of get the other way around, where he's all kind of a bit more Saul-esque with the cousins, where it's like, oh, cool, you got the money, I'm going to drive off, I'm more confident than that. And then once the shootout starts, you switch kind of back to Jimmy.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, he's completely out of his depth at that point. He knows it, and obviously he is afraid for his life, of course. I mean, anybody pretty much would be if you were unarmed and you had like 5 or 6 guys with guns around you. But I thought that was interesting as well, how in the same episode you've switched the opposite ways around, because you've gone from Jimmy to Saul and then from Saul to Jimmy, kind of with the confident stuff. I thought that was interesting to see as well. But yeah, lots of just interesting. I mean, I think I maybe caught it a bit more than you possibly, but just some of the gunfight kind of tactics that we're being kind of used to, I thought was really, really interesting. So yeah, it's amazing what one guy with one gun, which can only shoot one bullet at one time, can do against guys with assumably like 30 bullets in their rounds, but they just can't really hit him properly from there.
Yeah, because I mean, he was using like an old school rifle, because you saw him, when you see him shoot it later, you can see it's got a manual like reload thing on it.
Bolt action thing, yeah.
It's a bolt action rifle. So
yeah, which are very, very slow. Not as slow as the old guns with like the pipe stuff and all that. But
no. But they're very rare. You see those these days.
Yeah. So I thought that was cool as well. Yeah, I think we kind of covered the shootout. It was again, it was like, okay, this is really intense. Jimmy's not going to die, but the danger he was still in was still so interesting.
Yes.
And then obviously it was kind of in the moment figuring out like, okay, who is this? It might be Mike. It could be. Did you think it could be maybe like Gus at some point? Although Gus isn't really.
No, it's not. I think as I said, when it first started, I did wonder whether the cousins had been given instructions to kind of tail him, and for a little while at least, and because I mean the whole point of this is the cousins need to stay out of sight, can't go into the city. That was the whole point of not having the cousins just come and deliver the money. So, but whilst they were out in the desert, I did wonder whether they'd been given instructions to tail him to make sure he was okay. But that would be, then again, that would mean Lalo actually caring, and Lalo really doesn't care. I mean, he cares more about the money than he does about Jimmy. But so I did wonder whether it was maybe the cousins. But it then becomes the moment the person kind of comes down to check the bodies, it's fairly obvious it's Mike, even before he kind of the camera pans up and reveals it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's good stuff. So the shooter is Mike, whose truck is also disabled in the shootout. He places the money back in Jimmy's car. He and Jimmy begin driving back to Albuquerque. Later, Jimmy's car breaks down in the middle of the road or whatever, stranding the two in the desert. So now they have no vehicle, no cell phone service or reception. Obviously, they can't call the police for lots of different reasons.
Yes.
They remove the money, push the car over the cliff, and begin walking cross country. So the road trip kind of starts from here. To avoid the surviving gunman as they camp overnight, Jimmy tells Mike that Kim knows some details of his work from Lalo, or for Lalo, for this situation. And Mike tells Jimmy that if Kim knows about the Salamancas, she is now, quote, in the game, which isn't good. Jimmy and Mike resume their trek the next morning. So we have a few things to talk about here. I thought it was quite an interesting little touch where, when Mike starts to turn the car, and or the car or whatever, and he's like almost driving off the edge, and Jimmy's like, no, stop. And, and then what is it? He wants to get the lawyer,
the world's greatest lawyer cup, which he discovers has been shot through, and he kind of dives back in to get it, and then kind of realizes that it's got a bullet hole in it. But yes, I did wonder when he went back in. I thought that was probably what he was going back for, because Kim gave him that. So,
doesn't he have that in Breaking Bad? He has something like that in Breaking Bad.
I thought he did, so maybe he replaces it. It would make sense if he replaces it, because he probably doesn't. I mean, we don't know. We haven't seen what the aftermath of this is going to be, but I can't imagine he's going to want to kind of admit to Kim that his car was shot up. He might sort of say, "Oh, I got into a car accident." We might see next episode he's like, "Oh, I got stranded out in the desert. My car broke down." But I can't imagine he's going to tell her the full truth about, like, "Oh yeah, I got into this big shootout, and the reason I don't have my cup is because it had a bullet hole in it." So I suspect he may replace it himself.
Yeah. But I remember some sort of yellow thing. Yeah. He had in Breaking Bad.
So, yes, I think you're right. I think he did. But the whole interesting thing about this sequence as well is, in Breaking Bad, Mike and Saul appear to be quite a lot closer and know each other a lot better than we've ever seen in Better Call Saul so far. And this is, I think, one of the purposes of this whole episode is to pull them closer together.
Yeah.
So they have this experience that they're together and they, know each other a lot better. And I sort of think one of the purposes of this episode is to try and do that, because it's something that has been rather missing from the character development of those two characters together. That is that relationship, and how well they know each other in Breaking Bad compared to now. And what we've seen so far, they've been in and out of each other's orbit, but they appear to know each other a lot better in Breaking Bad than anything we've seen so far. So I think this helps kind of cement that relationship a bit more, so it's quite pivotal actually, this episode in that side of things. But I thought the bags as well, which he's having to carry across the desert. Apparently, Vince actually weighted the bags, so it was very method. It wasn't, there weren't stuff full of money, but he did put genuinely heavy weights in the bag. So it gave Bob Odenkirk actually feel like he was having to carry very heavy bags around the desert, because he was. So
and they looked as heavy as they should have been or whatever. So but they get rid of the car and all that sort of thing. What do you think of Mike's comment about she's in the game, which is not good for Kim? Yeah,
and I mean, Mike's obviously saying this without knowing the scene that comes next, and I think this is where we are seeing Kim getting drawn into this. Because she's now come face to face with Lalo in this next scene. So Mike is sort of saying, "Oh, she's in the game now." Jimmy's sort of trying to keep her out of it, but I rather suspect this is where we're seeing Kim's downfall start, because she's now getting roped into this. and
through Jimmy's mistakes, yeah,
through Jimmy's,
we've
yeah,
somewhat predicted before, obviously.
yeah,
Um,
and whilst it's not in Jimmy directly pushing her into it, it's what we've seen all along. Is something it's Jimmy's mistakes, not necessarily pushing Kim particularly in a direction. It's Kim wanting to make sure Jimmy's okay and trying to save him at some point, or her following her instincts to go the Saul route on something. And yeah, it sort of feels like that now. Although Jimmy wants to keep her out of it, I think she is now in it, and that's going to come back around, you know.
and I like the setup for that in this episode as well. You get it
Yeah,
both from basically Jimmy's side with his conversation with Mike, and then obviously in the scene we're about to talk about with Kim and Lalo, because now obviously Lalo knows what she looks like and all that, and that can't be for any good reason.
and
So,
knows it's his wife as
yeah,
well.
that as well. Yeah.
I
So,
mean, do you want to just do the next bit because they
sure.
sort of go
Yeah.
together, I think.
Okay. Yeah, when Jimmy fails to return after the whole night has gone and all that, a stressed Kim pretends to be Lalo's attorney and asks for Jimmy's location. Lalo refuses, telling her that Jimmy will be fine because he is a survivor. So this is their meeting that they have. So Lalo now knows what she looks like, knows her name, knows that they're married, which is... all of that is too much for Lalo to know.
Yeah.
Considering Lalo is the more villainous one out of the cartel.
Oh yeah.
I think at least for this series, obviously it's more Gus and Hector and that for Breaking Bad, but for this it's more to do with Lalo, and yeah, this isn't really what we wanted. But like you said, with Jimmy's mistakes, him becoming a friend of the cartel, which was referenced last week before, I think.
Yes, and referenced again. They, because when he comes back and initially tells Kim, she makes that reference of, "Are you a friend of the cartel now?"
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is coming around, and you've also got, you've now got this meeting, like you say, Lalo. We've been worried a bit about Gus finding out because we know what Gus is like when it comes to family members. From Nacho,
Right,
we
his
know.
dad, yeah.
Yeah, Nacho and his dad. So we know that there was a danger there. Lalo, I think any information that Lalo gets is not good for Jimmy and particularly for Kim.
For both of them,
And Lalo's the type of person that can very easily go, okay, well, I now know, she said she was part of my legal team. I don't see why she shouldn't be, and can draw her into it, and will just expect her to do it. It's not like it's very much an offer you can't refuse kind of set up, that sort of mob mentality. Lalo, if Lalo says that he wants it, and she is probably going to have to get involved if Lalo makes that request. So, yeah, I think this is not going to end well.
Nope, this is bad. This is leading down a bad path, and it won't necessarily get Kim killed, but it will definitely be what exits her from the whole story, because obviously she's not in Breaking Bad like we talked about before. And given what's most interesting to me is, given obviously we know next season's the final season, which is apparently 13 episodes instead of 10. I don't know if that's been completely confirmed, but that's just one thing that I heard. Given that this is episode 8 out of a 10 episode season, which is the penultimate season, and you now have the situation where one of the cartel members has met the partner of the main character, who we know isn't in the sequel series, if you will, or the main series, Breaking Bad. It's really lining up quite perfectly with, okay, next week's the penultimate episode for the penultimate season, and you've now got this seed planted where Lalo now knows completely about Kim, knows the whole kind of situation there, and then you've got the warning from Mike as well, where he's saying about, okay, she's in the game now, and then the whole, do you want to be a friend of the cartel? You probably don't, but obviously you've got the overconfident Saul side of things, which that's coming through, becoming Saul and all that sort of thing. Yeah, you can see where this is lining up, and Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with it specifically in the last two episodes, but like, given that you've got that leading into the end of the penultimate season and then into the final season where things are obviously going to conclude, I like what they're doing with this kind of pacing wise because they've been planting seeds throughout obviously the whole season, with the beer bottles and the legal stuff, and then him slowly getting involved with the cartel and Kim's advice of him not to do that, and he keeps doing it, and then
Mm.
it's him just making more mistakes and pushing Kim down this dangerous path, and we see more of that just pushed forward in this episode. So,
Yeah,
and you're even seeing, although there's the kind of fake tension, if you will, obviously with the scenes in the desert, because we know obviously Jimmy and Mike are going to be fine. It's also continued to lead Saul and Jimmy down that same path as well, where it's still pushing him further into that. We know he's going to be fine, but we don't know that Kim is, and that's adding up to something very interesting. So
mm.
we shall see. But yeah, some good stuff from all around. Not good for Kim, but good for the episode, of course.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
entertainment wise, it's weird, isn't it? Because like we know sort of what's kind of coming. We don't know exactly in what way, because obviously we haven't seen what happens to Kim. But it's weird to be. I mean, we're entertained because it's a great episode of television. It's a great season so far, and it's a great show. But we're watching the downfall of a character that we really like with Kim. So it's awkward in certain ways, but I think you can understand what we mean. So
yeah,
um, a dehydrated rather and sunburned Jimmy reaches his limit. He's done. And Mike fails to motivate him. Mike spots the surviving gunman, who is still searching for them. Rather than hide as Mike intends. Just before we get to that bit, actually, there is the when Jimmy gets his foot like pricked or stabbed or whatever. He's basically dragging the money bags because he's like, oh, I have this idea, and he straps the bags to his waist basically. And Mike's like, no, it's not going to work. And he's like, yeah, it will. And he's all sort of, grunty and and I'm just really annoyed at that point, obviously, because he's starting to fail.
yeah,
And yeah, we see the money start to come out of the bag, and you don't know how far that you kind of think at that point like, oh god, how long has that been? How long has this money been slowly
yeah.
slipping out the bag for? And they've been walking for ages, and we don't know exactly when that started happening. And then he falls over, pricks himself in the foot, and that's
Yeah, it's like,
basically when he
that's
says
it.
he's
I'm
done.
done.
So
Yeah, I mean that sequence again. You do Mike's reaction to that is brilliant because he just turns around and goes, "You're gonna get that." It's not like you're losing all the money. What are you doing, you idiot? He's just a completely cool. Mike again is like, just you're gonna get that, and Jimmy turns around and like panics because he sees the money kind of floating back in a trail. So yeah, we don't know how much he maybe lost over that either. But the moment he said, "Oh, I'm gonna drag the bag," you saw him kind of setting up to drag the bags. You're like, "This is you're gonna drag a hole in the bottom of the bag, and the money's gonna go everywhere. What are you doing?" Um,
yeah,
so yeah,
I like the contrast between these two that is shown, because you've got 'cause this is more the underconfident side with Jimmy. And he's sort of like, out of his depth a bit. He's kind of realised that he's dehydrated and, completely worn out and all that, and decides to do this stupid thing, which is drag the bags across. And then once they discover the money's started dropping out, you get the smarter reaction from Mike, which is to put the number plate that fell off or that came off that they took off from the car, and use that to cover the slot in the hole in the bag. So you've got this situation where Mike's come up with the good ideas, and he's kind of, well, cleaning up Jimmy's mistakes in a way. So I thought that was interesting as well.
yeah,
Yeah. So, but yeah, rather than hide as Mike intends, Jimmy runs to the road with that tinfoil stuff on to make himself really visible. Because obviously it's the whole what was it he said? The reflection thing from like a sniper shot or whatever, something like that. About you'd be more visible. Something to do with that.
yes, yeah,
Yeah, so he runs into the road to attract the gunman's attention. When he is close enough, Mike shoots him, causing the vehicle to flip and killing him in the process. And then Mike and Jimmy continue walking on the road. I love because you got some tension that's forced on Mike here, because he sort of makes the first shot and then has to do another shot, of course. And you see him like take this really big, deep breath, for the like sniper balance and all that sort of thing. Because that's the sort of gun where like you've got to be really, really precise, especially with the vehicle going as fast as it was, and you've got like bullet time and all that sort of thing that's going into everything. And like just as the car's really ramping up speed, and it is probably going to kill Jimmy if that hits him at that speed, or at least like severely injure him.
Yes, likely to kill him, I think, at that point.
Right, and then just this big kind of like breath that Mike takes, and he's like, he's got to get this shot kind of thing. I thought that was brilliant as well. And then like as Jimmy's just kind of running away, you get just this massive explosion kind of thing behind him. I thought it was great. So yeah, what do you think of this the last minute save, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, I like just Jimmy going, the whole sort of Jimmy saying I'm done, and then he's like, he comes up with this crazy idea of, well, I'm just going to use myself as bait, essentially, and just walk out into the middle of the road, and just turns to Mike, doesn't really even give Mike much of a chance. He just sort of turns to Mike and says, get that thing ready, and just walks off. Just brilliant. And a sort of proper Hail Mary kind of pass from Jimmy or rather Saul. I think that's kind of a desperation Saul move, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, brilliant. Just a wonderful way to end the episode, I think, as well. Again, a great bit of shooting and cinematography from the guys behind it, and I just thought this was wonderful. And the fact that, I mean, it's a shame that Mike couldn't do it by keeping by shooting the driver, although I could get why. I mean, you can't just, it's difficult to kind of shoot the driver going at speed. It's easier to take out the car itself.
Yeah.
But it would have been better if they could have saved the car so he could have actually driven that home, but never mind.
And then he finds the water.
The water bottle,
it's just destroyed and gone. So yeah, quite a crazy end to the episode. Really, really good stuff. Just shows kind of more tension with the scenes that they got in the show. So really, really great stuff as well in there. Kind of reminds me of some of my sniping as well that I do on there's so many Call of Duty references I could do in this, because obviously all the gun stuff that's happening. But on that game, you for the breathing in for the sniper stuff, you click in the left stick. So I was kind of thinking about that at the same time as well. And it's good stuff. Really, really good. So and that's the end of the episode. They're on the road back home, on their way back home, and we'll see how things go. Oh, what did you think of the Jimmy having to drink his own piss?
Yeah, I mean, they apparently, although there is a quote from them, although they use method acting for the weights in the bag, Bob Odenkirk could draw the line at drinking his own urine. Apparently,
that makes sense.
Which I entirely understand. So I suspect it was like foamed up apple juice, yeah, I mean, yes, I think that just sort of sums up where they both are at the end of this episode, of just kind of beaten down. It's like, well, I might as well at this point. Another little behind the scenes point, the Suzuki Esteem, which is the car that they pushed over into the and destroyed, was shot up and destroyed, wasn't actually the one that they would usually use to film. They've apparently kept that. They've preserved that just in case they need it for flashbacks. So it was a copy of it that they used over. So presumably Jimmy's getting a new car as well now. But yes, they've kept the original one just in case they need to use it for flashbacks later on.
That's probably a good idea, yeah. So... but there we go, that's the episode. We do have some feedback, of course. If you have any thoughts, feelings, questions, or whatever on Better Call Saul or anything related to Entertainment Talk, Matthew at entertainmenttalk.org, Twitter eTalkUK, there's a contact page and information in your show notes. Jason, great episode this week. That reminded me of the Fly episode, which we referenced at the start, I think, from Breaking Bad. Given that the Fly episode is one of the worst received ones, how do you think people will take to this episode? I've seen some mixed responses from the episode, I think. Some people said it was like really, really brilliant, and some people like, oh, this is just like a bottle episode, kind of waste of time, which I completely disagree with. I think it's more kind of following on from the misinterpretation of that Fly episode itself. A lot of people were like, oh, did you see the Fly episode where, they're in the one room and nothing happens?
Yeah.
I think some people just misinterpret both this episode and that episode as, okay, these are character development episodes and their relationship development episodes, because in the Fly one you've got essential pieces between Jesse and Walter or Heisenberg at that point, and they reference like the Jane stuff that happened, and there's this real sense of like, okay, can these two actually trust each other? Because there's like the drug situation that was going on in the episode as well.
Mm.
And with this, it's more Mike and Saul kind of trying to bond accidentally as well. Both episodes happen sort of from accidents as well. Like the fly gets in the lab by accident, and then obviously they get the car's destroyed by accident, and then they have to spend time on the road together. I think both the episodes are brilliant. I do think the fly episode is maybe the better one, just because Breaking Bad I still think is the better show. But I still think both episodes are amazing. But sometimes you do get people that misinterpret what the point of these sort of... Because this is kind of a bottle episode in a way, but then you do have a couple of scenes outside the main thing, like with the Kim Lalo stuff. But for the most part, it's meant to bring two characters closer together and both develop them separately, and of course develop them sort of together as well. And it also brings, you have the pretty vital piece of information that Jimmy actually tells to Mike, which is the whole like, okay, Kim knows some stuff about this, not everything, but some stuff. That's a pretty vital thing going forward, considering what's happening with Kim in the series. So I think that's important as well.
I think, we've said this before with bottle episodes, they're fine as long as they do something to advance the story.
Yeah.
And with both this and the fly episode, they both did, although they were, I think possibly actually this more so than maybe that fly episode, although I do love that episode as well. They are character building pieces, and there are vital bits of information that come out in this, as you say. The fact that Mike now knows about Kim, and the fact that they're married, and the fact that she knows about the situation with the Salamancas to a certain point. You've got Lalo that now knows about Kim and knows about her relationship to Jimmy and knows what she looks like and knows her name, and there are fairly vital things in there. Plus, you've got this big thing that is cementing that relationship together between Jimmy and Mike, which we haven't really seen as much to this point. We've only seen tiny little bits of it, and they've kind of been orbiting each other's worlds, but this is something which I think will pull them closer together. And that's something we need for where they end up at in Breaking Bad. Yeah. So there is it is a sort of bottle episode, but there is a lot of important things going on in this that is driving the characters and the story forward. And I think, these sort of episodes are fine as long as they are doing that. What you don't want is something which is just completely standalone and bears no relationship to the rest of the story, and then suddenly you end up back in the main story again. It's like, that just looks like you had some time to fill. You had this interesting idea and you had some time to fill, and then suddenly you're back in the main story. So Walking Dead had a habit of doing that quite a lot.
Yeah. They also have done too many bottle episodes in certain seasons. I think season 7 is a good example of that.
Yes,
so.
and no, we're not ragging on Walking Dead. Walking Dead, as we've said numerous times, if you listen to that show, is such a vast improvement the last couple of seasons since Angela Kang took over as showrunner. But there were a few points in the seasons in the sort of later Gimbal years where they went a bit nuts with the bottle episodes and it just didn't work. So I think if you're doing it, it's fine as long as it pushes the plot forward, and that's what this does. So yes, there are similarities to that fly episode, but as you say, they are a bit misinterpreted by some people, I think. And but this, I think, is a brilliant piece of TV.
Yeah, definitely. Lawrence says, can we assume that if Mike wasn't there for either the shootout or the escape from the desert, that Jimmy would have definitely died? Probably.
Yes.
It's amazing the tension you can still get from an episode knowing the fates of two characters, which is something we kind of talked about a little bit already. It is, because there's no actual real reason to feel the tension, because they're both going to survive. This gunman isn't going to kill Jimmy and Mike and then walk away with the money.
No.
Maybe worst case scenario, this guy manages to get the money, Jim and Mike survive, and then he gets away with the money. That's possibly like worst case scenario, but they're not going to die. But you still somehow get that tension, which the tension should almost not be there, but
Yeah.
it's weird. But yeah, if either from the actual desert survival itself, or obviously from the shootout, he was about to be killed. But if Mike had like saved Jimmy, but then left him on his own or something, Jimmy probably would have died from the actual
Oh,
desert survival
yeah.
himself, I
I
think, as
mean,
well.
if Mike hadn't been there, Jimmy first of all would have been shot through the head anyway.
Yeah.
And even if he had somehow managed to survive that, yes, he probably wouldn't have made it through the desert. So, or he would have stuck to the road and end up getting picked up by the guy that managed to escape. I mean, at every single point, had Mike not been there, Jimmy would have been dead. So,
Yeah. So, but yeah, they still managed to pull off something really amazing with this episode. So, and finally, Pauline says, "I think this is the best episode so far this season, and possibly of the series." I think she means just for Better Call Saul, because obviously it is its own individual TV series. It edges Kim closer to the cartel, which must be Endgame, I think, probably, given what we've kind of discussed.
I think so.
And also pushes Jimmy there too, but it does both separately and together. Some good points in there. It does, because you do have separate storylines for them both in this. They both deal with the same thing, which is the cartel, but they deal with them individually, because obviously you've got Kim that goes to see one character and Jim that goes off to do something else, because they're not, apart from the earlier scenes before he goes and leaves, they don't see each other again in the episode. So you do have this way where you've pushed them forward together and separately, and it's done just really, really well again. What about the best episode of the season or the series?
I certainly think it's up there. I'm trying to think. I mean, it's certainly one of the more memorable episodes. I think it's definitely a standout episode. In terms of the story, though, you've got some interesting possibilities, because they've been pushing this thing between Jimmy and Kim about how they're married, so they should tell the truth to each other, and Kim in particular has been pushing that. At this point, it's extremely possible you're going to see Kim withholding information from Jimmy, because she might not want, Jimmy at the moment, he's on his way back. We're presuming he gets back. Kim's upset with him. I rather think that Kim may not tell him that she went to see Lalo. So she ends up holding information back, and possibly, you could end up in a situation where Lalo ends up playing them off against each other. So you end up with him asking Kim to do stuff separately from telling Jimmy to do stuff,
right?
And you end up with them in conflict in some way there. So there are a few possibilities of where things could go, but this thing that they've been pushing all throughout the season about, certainly the last few episodes, about Kim insisting that they tell each other everything, and now they're in this position. I do wonder whether you're going to end up with them trying to protect each other and not telling each other everything, but in doing that ends up putting each other in more danger.
Yeah, it will be an interesting test from Kim's side, because she hasn't really been tested with the whole since the agreement was made last episode. She hasn't really been tested herself with that, so it will be interesting, like you said, to see what she tells Jimmy about Lalo, and what obviously Jim tells her or doesn't tell her about this whole desert trip and all that sort of thing. Yeah. So that'll be really interesting going forward. So I feel like we're right on that sort of a tipping point with this show now, where like, okay, now you really are starting to get Kim involved a lot. Before it was like, okay, Jimmy was telling some stuff to her and she was still dealing with, Mesa Verde and Mr. Acre and all that sort of stuff. And now that we've had the interaction with her and Lalo, that's really planted an interesting seed as to pushing her more into that, and then we'll see where that kind of leads to. So, and that's a great thing to do with 2 episodes to go in the season. So we shall see. But yes, the next episode is the penultimate episode for the penultimate season. So we're really getting towards, to quote one Doctor Strange, we're in the end game, I think.
Yes.
So, yeah. So we'll see where things go. But brilliant episode this week. We'll of course be back next week for the penultimate episode of the penultimate season 5, episode 9. We've still got some of them interesting titles coming up as well. I'm not going to say what they are here. Obviously, we'll wait till the actual episodes. There's one particular interesting title coming up, if you remember that one. But yeah, we'll see how things go. We'll be back next week to discuss whatever happens next, and see what happens with the trust between the two of them. So
Yes.
we'll see. But you can of course find everything else that we've got in the meantime on entertainmenttalk.org. Don't forget, maybe not by this time, by this time next week maybe, there will be the review for the first episode of Run, for the pilot. So join me to discuss that next week, and a bunch of other stuff. All on entertainmenttalk.org, so check all of it out. If you want to know if, when and where your favourite TV shows are coming back, there's a few air dates released today and yesterday. And of course Geektown Radio, and for your just general TV and film news as well, David's got you covered with reliable information over there. Still seeing some stupid clickbait, but you'll still see that. So,
yes,
but
not on our site.
not on this site or David's website. So you can trust everything you read and hear. But geektown.co.uk for all that information. If you want that in weekly podcast format, which you should do for Geektown Radio, that's on Tuesdays. You can of course listen to that on the website geektown.co.uk, and of course if you subscribe to Geektown Radio, just search for Geektown on your favourite podcast platform or the one that you use. So look out for that, and of course search for Entertainment Talk and get subscribed to those. If you want to support the podcast and support Entertainment Talk, we're on Patreon. Please check out the $1 and $3 level tiers for review options and ad-free podcast options. Amazon affiliate link if you're still buying stuff on Amazon. We can get a small cut of what you spend, but it won't cost you extra, so use the affiliate link for that. iTunes feeds, like I said, please just basically search for Entertainment Talk, search for Geektown, get yourself subscribed so that you are kept up to date, and don't forget to rate and review those feeds as well. I need to still check that, because I said I was going to do that yesterday, but I need to do that as well, to just check on those ratings and reviews. Word of mouth, of course. Please tell people that you know about the website and the iTunes feeds if you see them talking about something that we've covered, or even if you don't, just tell them about the website and the iTunes feeds. That will help us out as well. Social media, of course, please share them on Facebook and Twitter. The podcast, that is, the posts on Facebook and Twitter, both for Geektown and for Entertainment Talk, and if you can, put them in different Facebook groups. For streaming, you can watch me, David, and Bex on Twitch. Bex streams roughly twice a day, Trista Bites on Twitch. To go and check her out for some fun chatter over there. With some very real backgrounds as well. You can check that out as well.
Entirely on a beach. Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. That has Lego pirate ships on it.
So you can check that out through Bex's stuff as well. And of course Robert streams on Mixer. And if you want to see me take on the Nemesis, you can do that as well with the Resident Evil 3 Let's Play Sundays episode. Go and have a look out for those on Sundays as well. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time for the penultimate episode. Exciting stuff. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.